What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another UFC breakdown and predictions video, this time for UFC Vegas 99, Hernandez versus Pereira. Now, there was no recap video for UFC Vegas 98, and that's because it was Canadian Thanksgiving over the weekend, and I had a lot of people over on Saturday. I got absolutely obliterated, and on top of that, I didn't get to watch every single second of every fight, so I couldn't really recap an event that I didn't see fully at the time. But in terms of results, we ended up going 9-3 officially on our picks, and the three that we got incorrect were the Jonathan Pierce, bum, Jared Gooden, bum, and Tatsuro Taira, who, even though he lost to a former flyweight title contender in Brandon Royval, at 24 years of age, he proved that he can hang with the elites of the division and still has an extremely promising career ahead of him. Now, in terms of our bets, we went and posted them on Twitter like usual, which I always recommend you guys go and follow. Limpy Bets with 2 Ys. After Limpy, we posted 2 official plays on our Twitter, and we hit both of them, increasing our units by I think it was just over 1 unit, because we cashed both of those plays. The first play was the most confident picks parlay, like we do for every event. It was Temba Grimbo, Clayton Carpenter, and Grant Dawson. That parlay cashed with relative ease. There was no point in any of those fights that I was really worried about it. Really worried about those picks. And then we had a single money line bet on Julia Palastri, which also cashed with relative ease. So make sure you guys go over to my Twitter, Limpy Bets. Follow me there so you guys can get all my confidence levels for the picks, my bets during the events as well. Nevertheless, let's go ahead and break down UFC Vegas 99. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and drop a comment down below with your thoughts on this UFC Vegas 99 event. Now, starting things off, we have a heavyweight showdown. Robelis Despaigne going up against Austin Lane. Now, typically, when people look at previous matchups to determine who they're going to pick, if you guys look at these particular fighters and their past fights, you're going to think there is a path to victory for Robelis Despaigne, or for Austin Lane rather, because of how he fought Jonathan Denise's last time out. Yes, he did end up getting KO'd by Jonathan Denise, which I think is going to happen again this fight. But Austin Lane was able to put on his wrestling shoes, take down a kickboxer in Jonathan Denise, and give him a lot of trouble, controlling him on the ground in that first round, dealing some damage as well. But ultimately, he gassed out, and he has absolutely no chin either. So Jonathan Denise was able to put him away in that second round. Austin Lane has 5 career losses. All 5 of those losses are by KO. Now, if you look at Robelis Despaigne's last fight, it was a loss to Waldo Cortez Acosta, which I actually called. You guys can go and check out that video. I don't remember the exact event that it was. Let me just double check. It was the Louis Nascimento. It was the St. Louis, Missouri card. I actually picked Waldo Cortez Acosta. I felt insane for doing so, but it was a great pick on our end. But Waldo did that by wrestling Despaigne, taking away his most lethal weapon, which is that power. And you're going to think because Lane did it to Jonathan Denise that he's going to be able to do it as well. But Despaigne, once he finds that connection once to Austin Lane's chin, I think Austin Lane is going to sleep. And that is how I think this is going to happen. There's nothing really much more to say about this matchup. I think Despaigne gets a knockout probably early on in the fight and gets back on the right track. So Robelis Despaigne by KO is my pick. Let's continue up the card. We have Alice Ardelean going up against a returning fighter in Melissa Martinez. Now, this fight for me is, I don't want to say it's relatively easy, because Ardelean is a dog. She's tough. She'll continue fighting and get scrappy with her opponents, but she's going up against Melissa Martinez, who is going to be faster, the more technical striker, and Melissa has pretty decent power as well on the feet. Now, Ardelean is probably going to have to mix in some wrestling to find more success against somebody like Melissa Martinez, but Martinez has shown that she has solid enough takedown defense to kind of fend off that kind of attack from her opponents. Now, the one thing that is really shying away from me from being more confident in the Melissa Martinez pick is she hasn't fought for over 2 years. Her last fight was against Elise Reed, which she lost back in September of 2022. And she hasn't fought since. She was nursing a knee injury, I believe. So and I guess she had a canceled fight. She was supposed to fight Yasmin Lucindo as well, and I think that's when she was still nursing that injury. So I don't know how she's gonna look. That's why I'm not more confident on that side. But fun little fact, on the Contender Series, I believe it was episode 8, if I'm not mistaken, her brother ended up getting a contract. So she's kind of riding on some positive momentum with the family win. Her and her brother are the first brother-sister duo to have made it into the UFC at the same time. So which is kind of cool. So it'd be really cool to see her get the dub. I don't think that's why she wins. I just genuinely believe she's the better fighter in this specific matchup here. And to be honest, losing to Shauna Bannon in a fight really doesn't show much in terms of skill level, which Ardelean ended up doing in her UFC debut. Yes, it was on short notice, I understand, but if you're going to be anything in the UFC in this division, you got to beat people like Shauna Bannon. But with that being said, on the Melissa Martinez side, if you're going to be anything in this division, you got to beat fighters like Elise Reed. So it's kind of give or take here. I don't blame anybody for picking the Alice Ardelean side because she has that scrappy sort of style and she is a dog. But I am going to go with Melissa Martinez. The only thing shying me away from being completely confident on the Melissa Martinez side is that 2-year layoff, but she will be my pick. Next up, I didn't change her name. Jessica Penne is apparently taking on Junior Tafa. No, taking on Elise Reed. So this fight, I was kind of thinking about picking Jessica Penne, but honestly, I'm just going to go with Elise Reed. This is a low-level women's fight. Typically, I'm not 100% confident in any ladies match because they are always so greasy and split decision-y, and nothing is going to change from the women's fights on this card. Now, the only thing I think that gets Jessica Penne a win here is a submission. Elise Reed is going to be the more technical, the faster striker. On the feet, she is going to be dealing with a little bit of a height and reach discrepancy, but ultimately, I think if she can just avoid those takedowns from Penne, she will be able to cruise to a victory. If she can keep it on the feet and just outbox Jessica Penne, I think that's exactly what's going to happen because Penne only has a 21% UFC career takedown percentage, which is absolutely terrible. And even though Reed doesn't have the best takedown defense, it's going to be really tough for Penne to get her down, and that's where she's going to find most of the success. And it's going to be up to Penne to get those takedowns because Elise Reed is a striker. She's not going to go for those takedowns. If she does, I think that's super silly because that is giving Penne an opportunity to find that win. So very reluctantly, I will go with Elise Reed. I am very low confidence on that side, but she will be the pick. Next up, we got Jocelyn Edwards going up against Tamiris Vidal. And this, even though I am not extremely confident on either side here, I am going to pick Jocelyn Edwards because I just believe she is the better fighter out of the two. Vidal has shown that she is more of a brute. Then she's got that kind of style. She kind of just tries to outmuscle her opponents. Her striking isn't super clean. She kind of wings heavy bombs and tries to land on her opponents. But if you look on the Jocelyn Edwards side, she is also a pretty big girl for this weight class. And I don't think that bullying style is going to typically works for Vidal will work against somebody like Edwards because she also brings a sort of physicality to her game. And in terms of skill for skill on the feet, Jocelyn Edwards is going to be way better technically on the feet. And even though she may be giving up a power advantage with those strikes, I think Edwards is just going to be the much better striker. She's going to shoot those teep kicks to the gut repeatedly, which is going to wear down Vidal as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick Jocelyn Edwards. I just truly believe she's the much better fighter. And that's basically it for this one. But yeah, Jocelyn Edwards is going to be my pick here. Let's keep rolling. We got Brad Katona going up against Gene Matsumoto. Now, this fight, both of these guys are very well-rounded. Both of them are able to find success anywhere the fight takes place. But one of them is not necessarily like experience-wise because both of these guys have around the same fights, but as sort of the age, we have a really young fighter in Gene Matsumoto who is 25, and we have Brad Katona who is arguably in his physical prime at the age of 32. So some people may favor Katona because he has that sort of style where he can find success striking, he can get the takedowns and find some control on the ground as well, but he lacks the what is the term that they use when that killer instinct? That's what I'm talking about. He lacks the killer instinct. He only has 4 career finishes, 1 KO, TKO, and 3 submissions. So out of 14 victories, 10 of them are by decision. In his last fight against Jesse Butler came in on short notice. Brad Katona was a huge favorite, and he came in and was content with getting a decision victory. I don't like to lay my confidence on fighters that aren't always looking to just put their opponent away and find those finishes. Katona is going to be content with trying to ride things out, even if they aren't going his way. Against Garrett Armfield, some people say that he won that fight. I disagree. I had it 2-1 Garrett Armfield. But the problem is Brad Katona can get as frustrated as he wants if he thinks robbery this, robbery that, but he doesn't do anything in his fights to try to get his opponents out of there. Yes, like I said, he can find success anywhere it goes, but he's not looking to finish the fight. Now, Gene Matsumoto, on the other hand, even though he does have a handful of those decision victories as well, he has 3 KOs, 6 submissions, and 6 decisions. He has more of that killer instinct. In his last fight, his UFC debut against Dan Argueta, I actually picked Dan Argueta because I liked his wrestling pressure against a newcomer in Gene Matsumoto, who we haven't really seen have to deal with a pressure wrestler like that. But Matsumoto did not let that deter him. He was getting, I don't want to say ragdolled, but kind of getting thrown around, taken down. But like I said, he did not quit at any point. He ended up waiting for Dan Argueta to gas out, slow down, and then he wrapped up a guillotine at the end of that second round and put him out cold with a guillotine choke. So that is one thing that I like about Gene Matsumoto, specifically in this matchup. I think he can hang skill-wise anywhere the fight takes place with somebody like Brad Katona, but I can count on Matsumoto to try and finish the fight or have the bigger moments in the fight. So I will go ahead and pick Gene Matsumoto to get this done against Brad Katona. Next up, we got Matthias Nicolau going up against Asu Almabayev. Now, this fight I was kind of on the fence about. I was going to go with Asu Almabayev, but for some reason, I have this nagging feeling about Nicolau. Now, Matthias Nicolau, I picked against him against Brandon Royval. Royval ended up putting him away, knocked him out cold. Back in April of 2023. He took a year off after getting flatlined and came back to get knocked out by Alex Perez in a similar fashion to Topuria and Volkanovski. It was like the same little sequence and everything. And he got knocked out cold again, which is also never a good thing in the flyweight division. He is entering the Matt Schnell territory. Okay, in terms of chinniness. So it is very concerning in that sense. But Asu Almabayev is not really known for his power. He only has 3 career KO victories. He is the typical Eastern region fighter from Kazakhstan. He just wants to wrestle. He pressure wrestles. He takes you down. He tries to beat you up and find a submission. That's his whole game plan. And he's been very successful in the UFC thus far doing that. He has 3 victories, 3 fights, 3 victories. Took out Ode Osborne, choke, Vergara, unanimous decision, and Jose Johnson, unanimous decision. Now, a lot of people are really confident on the Asu Almabayev side, and I necessarily wasn't as confident as they are. I was going to go with Almabayev, but like I said, I have this nagging feeling about Nicolau. I think he's just going to be the way better striker, more polished. I don't want to say more power, but probably more power as well, technique-wise for sure. And the thing that really swayed me over to the Nicolau side is that 93% takedown defense. Yes, he hasn't seen somebody like Almabayev in terms of pressure wrestling, other than actually, he has seen one, Tim Elliott. And Tim Elliott is the only person in the UFC to have taken down Nicolau. Nicolau has 10 fights in the UFC, and the only person to take him down is Tim Elliott. So that is a huge feat for him to have accomplished. Asu Almabayev may be able to be the second person, but 93% takedown defense is incredible, and I think that's going to help him out a lot in this fight. The thing with Nicolau as well, he's not extremely high volume where he's going to leave many openings for Almabayev to kind of sneak in those takedowns. So honestly, if the takedown defense holds up like it has been in his first 10 fights in the UFC, I think this is going to go very well for Nicolau. If its chin holds up as well. And those are two big things that we need to go right in this matchup. But I believe it's going to he's going to give Almabayev one of those UFC vet lessons, and it's going to be extremely tough. So it's going to be good to see where Asu Almabayev is in terms of skill level. Nicolau is a great test for him, but I don't think he passes it. I think his takedown defense holds up. Almabayev isn't an extremely hard hitter, so I think his chin holds up, and then Nicolau, I think, will win. It just out technique. He'll land more, better on the feet as well. So give me Matthias Nicolau to get this done. I believe he is the underdog as well, so I like it. I'm going to go with Nicolau here. Next up, we have the battle of the UFC veterans. We have Darren Elkins taking on Daniel Pineda, and I completely understand the toughness of Darren Elkins. The guy weaponizes it. He gets beat up and then somehow finds a way to victory. He's made a career out of it, and his nickname is the Damage, but I don't think it's because of damage that he deals to his opponents. I think it's damage that he takes from his opponents. But like I said, he takes that damage, he takes it on the chin, and just outdogs his opponents. That's how he gets it done. But he's going up against a bona fide finisher in Daniel Pineda, who has 28 wins and 28 finishes. Now, the only reason why I'm not more confident on the Pineda side is because he loses fights like Elkins wins fights. Pineda is extremely dangerous, but the problem is he goes so hard so early, he ends up gassing out in most of his fights, and he's never won on the judges' scorecards. So if Pineda can't get Elkins out of there early, which is not an easy thing to do, he will start to slowly fade, and then Elkins will take over with that pressure and just piece him up. The problem is I can't, despite the age of Pineda as well, I can't bank on a 40-year-old Darren Elkins that has almost 40 fights to withstand the danger factor from Daniel Pineda early and just outdog another one of his opponents in another fight. So I know it might be a corny way to look at it. Both of these guys are getting up there. This is a toss-up fight, as the odds suggest as well, but I am going to go with the Daniel Pineda side to get things done. I have no idea how he's going to get it done, if it's going to be a submission or a KO or even his first decision victory in his career, but I'm not going to bank on Darren Elkins to be able to withstand another onslaught. The guy's taken an extreme amount of damage in his career, and I just don't want to put my confidence in a fighter like that at the age of 40. So I'm going to go with Daniel Pineda here, very reluctantly, very low confidence. Let's keep moving on. We have a short notice replacement fight, actually. Jake Hadley was originally supposed to take on Brady Hiestand, but Hiestand, I don't know why, but he withdrew yesterday, and in comes Cameron Smotherman. Now, if you guys are familiar with Cameron Smotherman, he was on the Contender Series last season, and he took on Charalampos Grigoriou. He got knocked out in 1 minute. I actually picked Gregorio to win that fight, but I recognized the skills of Cameron Smotherman. Now, I haven't seen any of the 3 fights that he's had since, but it is 2 third-round finishes and a split decision since then, against the lower level comp, but still reputable records, like with the first 2. Mando Gutierrez, who actually lost to Raul Rosas Jr. on the Contender Series the year before. He beat him by flying knee in the 3rd round. Split decision against a 7-1 fighter, and then Anaconda choke in the 3rd round against a 4-6 fighter back in July. But he has the skills to be in the UFC. He's only 27 years old as well, but he's taken on somebody in Jake Hadley, who typically is a grappling specialist, but showed off his striking in his last fight against Colin Loughran. Now, Jake Hadley was originally in the bantam or the flyweight division, but he came into the bantamweight division for that Loughran fight, and it seems like he's going to stay here. He missed weight in that fight as well. But the reason why he found so much success there is because Colin Loughran typically wants to wrestle and find control time on the ground. He was unable to do that, and Hadley was able to piece him up on the feet because Loughran doesn't move that brick of a head he has off that center line. He just gets pieced up. Somebody like Cameron Smotherman is going to be able to compete with Hadley on the feet. He has great striking. He's also a dog. Yes, he's been knocked out twice in his career, but Jake Hadley isn't really this huge power puncher where we're going to have to worry about Smotherman getting hurt early. Now, I know this is on short notice, and it's a UFC debut, so it's not like extremely high confidence, but I think I will go with Cameron Smotherman here. Jake Hadley has just been underwhelming in his UFC tenure. 3-3, nothing special. He has wins over Carlos Candelario, Malcolm Gordon, who everybody beats, and Colin Loughran, who doesn't move his head. So, and his losses actually aren't bad either. Alan Nascimento, Cody Durden, Charles Johnson. So reputable names there, but I haven't been wowed by Jake Hadley. I think Smotherman is going to come in and make a statement. I don't know if he's going to I don't think he puts Hadley away, but I think he just outdogs him. I think it's going to be a good scrap. I'm assuming Smotherman's going to be an underdog here. I don't think the odds are out yet, or at least not that I've seen. But I will go with the newcomer. I am going to go with Cameron Smotherman to get this done. Let's move on to the featured fight of the night. Make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and comment down below on your thoughts, or with your thoughts on UFC Vegas 99. Featured fight of the night, we got Charles Johnson taking on Sumudaerji, and I'm going with my boy Energy Charles Johnson. There is nowhere the fight will take place that Sumudaerji is better. Maybe in the grappling, but we've seen Charles Johnson get taken down multiple times, and his opponents, who have way better control and way better wrestling than Sumudaerji, cannot keep him down. The guy just keeps getting back up, and he finds success in basically all of his fights. That boxing is so clean, so crisp, and he has a lot of volume. Typically, early on in his UFC career, he was slow to start. He drops those first rounds, but then he starts to take over because his pace, his volume, his boxing is so relentless. But lately, in this 3-fight win streak that he's on, he hasn't really started off slow. He himself has said he's more of a 5-round fighter than anything, but it seems like he's kind of adjusting to the fact that he isn't main eventing things yet. And he hasn't really started off slow in any of his fights. In his last fight, it was his most impressive so far, in my opinion. He knocked out Joshua Van in the 3rd round of their fight. Before that, beat Jake Hadley. Before that, he beat an undefeated Kazakhstanian fighter, Azat Maksum, after getting dropped in the 1st round. Came back and put it on him. And I just really like that from Charles Johnson. Sumudaerji, he's not a terrible fighter. He's a good fighter. It's just I don't see where he I don't see him being better than Charles Johnson literally anywhere. I think this is mainly going to be a striking battle. Even if Sumudaerji shoots for some takedowns, Charles Johnson has good takedown defense, and he has a fantastic get-up game. So I don't think he finds much success there. I think the boxing and the volume is going to be too much for Sumudaerji. I don't see Sumudaerji knocking Charles Johnson out, and I think the volume, output, pressure from Charles Johnson is just going to be too much for Sumudaerji to handle. So I will take Energy Charles Johnson to get things done. Let's move on to the co-main event. We got Rob Font taking on Kyler Phillips. I am going to go with Kyler Phillips here. He is fighting another UFC vet. He's coming off of a fantastic win against a different UFC vet in Pedro Munoz, and I can see a similar fight happening here. Rob Font is known for his hands. His boxing is clean, crisp, and he has decent power for this division as well. But he's 37 now. He's 1-4 in his last 5 fights. He's just hasn't really shown, like, he's slowing down, and it's inevitable. MMA is not an old man's game. He is slowly deteriorating in terms of skills, and he's going up against Kyler Phillips, who's entering his prime, who's going to just have good boxing, great boxing as well. He's just going to be faster. He's going to probably be hit a little bit harder. He's going to be much younger. The cardio will be there in his favor as well, and he is likely to mix in the takedowns as well, which we've seen Rob Font struggle with in the past. So I am going to go with Kyler Phillips. That's basically my entire breakdown for it. So there's no need to hang on this fight a little bit longer. We are absolutely ripping through this video, and I love it. I'm going to be taking Kyler Phillips here to get things done, probably on the scorecard. But I can see him landing some big shots on Rob Font, maybe wobbling him at some points. But I will take Kyler Phillips. Let's move on to the main event of the evening. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez going up against Michel Pereira. Now, I am going to be picking Pereira here. I understand the pressure grappling from Hernandez. I understand that he's been able to dominate his way through the UFC by doing that, but going up against an absolute unit in Michel Pereira. Michel Pereira, since moving up to middleweight, has just been steamrolling everybody. The guy is a physical specimen. He is extremely strong. He hits hard as shit, and I just don't think that Anthony Hernandez is going to be able to implement that pressure wrestling / pressure grappling style that he typically does to ragdoll his opponents and finish them. Yes, he might be able to do that, but somebody in Michel Pereira, man, he is just so physically strong. I think he's the much better striker, the more powerful striker on the feet. And the only thing that I would say would favor Hernandez is the cardio. So if Pereira, because we've seen Pereira gas out before in 3-round fights, never mind if this ends up going past the 3rd round mark, but I just truly think that Pereira gets this done. I can see him knocking out Hernandez. We've seen it happen before. Kevin Holland did it in under 40 seconds. And on the tear that Michel Pereira is on, I can see him getting Hernandez out of there. Hopefully sooner rather than later, because Pereira will start to fade. Hernandez will have the cardio advantage. And that's basically how he's going to win. If he weathers the early storms and makes it to the late 2nd, 3rd round, I think Hernandez will start to take over. But that is a big ask to survive the storm of Michel Pereira. So I'm going with, I believe he's the underdog here. I'm going to go with Michel Pereira to get things done, probably by knockout. I'm going to call it right now. Michel Pereira by KO. Those are all of my picks, guys. So let's run it through like we typically do. We got Robelis Despaigne, Melissa Martinez, Elise Reed, Jocelyn Edwards, Jean Matsumoto, Matthias Nicolau, Daniel Pineda, Cameron Smotherman, Charles Johnson, Kyler Phillips, and Michel Pereira. Thank you guys so much for watching another video. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, comment down below with your thoughts on UFC Vegas 99, and I will see you in the recap video. Hopefully we sweep the card. Make sure you follow me on Twitter as well, Limpy Bets, so you can see all of my bets, my confidence level for all the picks, and all that great stuff. Thank you guys again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.